All right, good morning. How's everybody doing? That's enough enthusiasm for me, by the way. I feel you. All right, so I want to talk to you guys about 3D printing, mainly like what you guys can do with it. Sort of this is your, I'm not going to overcomplicate this. It's just your introduction as well as, what you guys might be doing with it. Because again, it's all about going from regular sort of design into 3D printing or object design. So we'll kind of go through that. That's my Twitter handle, at Trani, and I will be tweeting out these slides later as well. So, and if you guys kind of take a look back at probably your career history, if you will, that's kind of where I'd like to begin in general. So again, this is what I used to draw because that's just kind of awesome dragons and stuff. Old school, right? And you might have done this. Maybe you were the art kid. And I take it probably most people in here are interested in 3D printing or if are not designers. Probably designers is what I'm going to assume. She says yes, so that's good. But again, I went to art school, got an illustration degree. I used to work in print as well. And worked for a television network, and I just basically got involved in all these various mediums, right? Multimedia with CD-ROMs, right? Director, right? Making those experiences, right? You guys remember Director? Authorware? Remember? That's like old stuff. And like, you probably did web stuff back in the day. That's my website from like 97 or something like that, so... Like, what is it? It says illustration, animation, then it says virtuality. What the heck is virtuality? I have no idea. What was I thinking? But it was a cool word, right? But again, that's kind of my history, is bouncing from all these different sort of mediums, I guess. From print, TV, into more multimedia. And that's what I've done, is I've gotten involved in new technology, because I like to exploit it. As soon as it's out there, I want to exploit it for my own creative ends. And again, worked at a television network, and now I've done app design as well. So that's kind of how I've broken it down, and maybe your career looks like this, because chances are, if you haven't graduated within the past 2 years, you've probably, who's done more than, say, one thing or doing more than one thing now? Let's ask one question at a time. Who has done, like more than one thing? So even if you're doing web design, did you start out doing print? Just by a show of hands. Like 5 years ago, chances are you were doing maybe something that was a little bit different. They say even if you take a break for a couple of years, coming back into the industry, it's like a whole new industry as you come back into it. But again, you've probably been involved in graphic design, motion design, interactive, whatever. And quite frankly, I just say yes too much. I'll be like, yeah, I can do that. And you figure out how to do it. And that's how you learn, right? And it's no different when it comes to, 3D printing, is I've had to make these jumps just like you guys have, exploiting those for different creative opportunities, and 3D printing is no different. And that's what I plan to do with it, is exploit it and see if I can make some money out of it. But more importantly, guys, is just I want to do cool creative stuff at the end of the day, right? And hopefully you guys are the same way, because again, it made billions of dollars last year, like 3 point something. I don't remember. I tweeted out last week how much the 3D printing industry has made, right? And we can talk about the history of it, but in general, it's going to be exploited by creatives. Because I can give you guys a MakerBot, but it's a MakerBot in the hands of creative is going to be what's the cool thing. So again, we've learned all these different apps as well, kind of across the board. We said, hey, you know what? Let's tap into that very large industry of creatives that are using Photoshop, and let's give you the ability to 3D print from Photoshop, right? Did you guys know you guys can 3D print from Photoshop? Some say yes, some say no. Well, I'm glad you guys are here. Whether you've heard of it or not, I'm going to show you guys how to do it, because it's super easy, and we'll get into that. And that's what we wanted to do, is make the barrier entry really easy for everyone. It's giving you that one platform, right? Okay, and just like we've done with graphic design, guys, what do you do? When it comes to graphic design, you're making a poster, you print it out using PostScript. And that's Adobe's legacy, is PostScript. Whatever you see on your screen, we want that to print out, right? And that's how we've made our money, like fonts. Make sure those fonts carry over from, your screen to the printer. And the same thing for 3D printing. Whatever we have on the screen, even, again, it's more than likely is made in a 3D program, right? But just like Photoshop doesn't take pictures, doesn't take photos, but it's a sort of a finishing tool for photos, it's the same concept. It's like if it was made somewhere else, I could bring it into Photoshop. It'll do all this magic behind the scenes that you don't have to worry about. But the end result is something that's going to be printed out successfully. So I don't need to worry so much about thickening the walls or the support structures, things like that. And we'll get into what all that stuff is, right? So again, what we see on the screen is going to be what's printed. Okay, let's just take a look at this real fast, and you can see this in the other room. I don't know if you've seen the MakerBots. Here's this 3D printer. It has that spool of plastic that melts in that extruder, which is like a hot glue gun, right? It's melting it, and then it's just kind of drawing on layer by layer this particular item, right? You can see that lattice work on the inside. You guys can see that. It's not necessarily 100% solid. Oh, oops. Let's go again. But you can see that pattern on the inside. It's not maybe fully solid, like some of these things aren't fully solid. It just gives you this lattice work. And what you'd have to do a couple of years ago is actually build that into your model, so it actually printed out, right? But that's what we need. We don't want it to be solid because it would take about 4 weeks to print. But in general, this is going to give it that strength without the using up the materials, right? What is that? What does that look like? What is it? Yeah, man. Guess that wasn't that. Could have been root, something, an upside down root. But that's how it works. Again, it seems very simple, and you guys would be right, guys, because this technology has been around for 30 years. It was like made in the 80s, right? It was made in the 80s. They had patents on it, and those patents expired around 2010. Around some of those major patents that started expiring. And that's why it's available to you today. It's like the system worked. Somebody invented it. They were able to make money off of it, right? And then it was then available to the public, and that's why you see all costs going down, all sorts of things, right? So yeah, definitely pretty cool. That was one type, okay? That was just one type of printing, which is if you go to the room down the hall to the left, you'll see a bunch of MakerBots that will do that exact same thing. There's also another type of printing. So this printer is basically doing it with powder and a laser and glue and all sorts of magic, basically. I think technically this is glue. This is the full color sandstone. Okay, so it basically is glue and sand, and it actually does color. So it actually injects color in there as well. So those are full color pieces that got printed out, layer by layer, and then they clean them up as she's doing right now. This is at Shapeways, by the way. So she kind of cleans them up, kind of like excavating. They actually dip it into glue, right? So that's what you get. You get that full color sandstone, right? Like that. And again, you guys can check these out as well. If you haven't seen them, here's some full color sandstone up here as well as different prints. So you have, the printers up the way. You have those sort of single color printers, if you will, right? They actually do multicolor now. But in general, you have sort of single color, you have sandstone, you have full color sandstone, you have different types of materials as well. That same powder machine can also do metal. Okay, so it's a similar one. It's not that exact same one, but it's also done with powder and lasers, and you can make, metal objects as well. So here's some metal, right? Here's the Creative Cloud logo. Just made in Photoshop. All I did is extruded it, and then I turned it into a bottle opener. So if you turn it upside down, it'll like open a bottle. It's a bottle opener, right? So it was actually done quite simply. And what I've done is I've just made it really fast in Photoshop, just extruded that logo, and then I sent it to Shapeways pretty much directly through Photoshop, guys. And it didn't take me long, and I want to show you guys how to do that. Because again, I just want to kind of get you guys involved in the industry. Again, what can you make? Pretty much it's up to you guys. You can make whatever the heck you want, because there's a zillion different things. Whether you want to use it for manufacturing, for fine art, right? So again, you have everything from cufflinks to fine art in the center. and little tchotchkes in the upper right as well. But you could do a lot with it. And I've even done sort of certain prototypes with it as well. Like you'll see this. It's like a little phone stand, right? Extruded, Adobe logo. It's just an Adobe stand, right? Phone stand, easy enough. But this is a case where I've actually prototyped it, made it in Photoshop, had it printed out through Shapeways, basically sold in the idea, and then we actually sent it overseas for manufacturing. So when you feel this, if you want to catch that, it's a rubber because, again, we send it overseas for manufacturing to do sort of the bulk creation of that. So, and if you guys want to pass that around, well, that's cool. But again, there's a lot you can do. I'm actually going to show you a couple of these pieces, which I love some of this work. Eric Van Straten, we'll just get jealous. Archetypo, I think they're in London. I'm not 100% sure, but I know they're in England somewhere. Nonetheless, they did the whole alphabet. So they did Courier. The Courier font makes that C, and it's made up of those little typewriter hammers, because that's where Courier comes from. Bodoni is two different fonts. It's kind of the evolution of Bodoni, so it's one font kind of merging into Bodoni. Universe with the U. So they did that for all 26 letters, and is a whole lot of awesome, right? But again, that's just fun stuff. Sebastian Irazzuri, these are, 12 shoes for 12 lovers. So this is like, I guess his ex-girlfriends. You have the one on the right is the gold digger. The ice queen in the middle, and then the heartbreakers on the left. They did 12 of them, and they're awesome, right? So cool. Yes. And along those lines, by the way, I know Nervous System there's another 3D printing session. I think it's actually tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure. There's another 3D printing session, and she goes into a lot of stuff that she's created. So make sure you check that out. And again, I'm going to highlight a couple of these easy things, guys, just to keep it simple, right? In fact, let's just go ahead and get out of those slides. Let's just get this party started right in here. So this is what I'm going to do. Starting out in Photoshop, guys, I'm not going to get too fancy. In fact, I'm just going to start with, a shape. Okay, here's, again, Creative Cloud logo, quite simply. And it could be anything. This happens to be vector, but it could also even be raster, okay? But nonetheless, this is just a vector path, okay? And all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn something flat into 3D, and then we'll go through that process of, printing it. So here's the Creative Cloud logo. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the 3D panel. You can go Window 3D, opening that up. Here it is. And from here, I can make it a flat piece, but really I want to extrude it, okay? But also note that you can, add sort of basic shapes, if you will, primitives. Which you might look at that and be like, yeah, whatever, primitives, boring, what? Oh, cube, real cool. No, you can do, everything's made up of basic shapes, so it's amazing what you can actually do just with these solid shapes. But nonetheless, 3D extrusion, click create, right? Boom, and there it is, right? So it made it 3D. Okay, so here it is. And check this out, guys. Look at how my panel has changed. We have our layers panel. Okay, but look at this 3D panel has changed. So just consider this your new layers panel, right? So just keep in mind of what you have selected. Right now I have the logo selected. Well, I can select the light, or I can select the current view. So if I select that current view and do the move tool, what's it going to do? It's going to move my current view, right? So I can jump in here, rotate this around, and you can see that it is 3D. Okay, same thing for the light. I can select the light and use the move tool. And now I'm adjusting my lighting as well. Change that all I want. For the object itself, I can select it. And I can start to manipulate it using these controls right here. So you jump in and start to move it any way I want, or stretch it, or whatever. I want it to stand straight up. Okay? Because rather than just taking the company logo and slapping it onto a cup, rather than doing that, I'd want to actually turn this into an actual cup, right? So that's what I'm doing. So I'm standing it up, and some of you guys are like, whoa, 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 it's not standing straight up, right? Because that's going to annoy you. It's not 90 degrees, Paul. I hear you. Let's go over here. It's right over here. Again, these are the two panels you need to be concerned with, your 3D panel and then your properties panel. So over here, I can jump in to the coordinates, and you're right, I didn't do it 90 degrees, but I can jump in, and now it's standing straight up, just like that, right? So I can manipulate it all I want with that fine control that I'd expect. Move it to the ground. That's a button I hit a lot because I want to make sure when I print it, it's sitting on the ground. From there, I can play with this some more. In fact, let's take a look at some of these other controls right in here. Extrusion depth. Here we go. Let's look at this deform. Let's just zoom back out. Let's just hide all that stuff. But notice how you can do more with it. So again, you can have some fun with it. Say, for instance, if I wanted to twist it, I can start twisting it like that. And I should have some examples of this. But again, I can take anything and sort of twist it if I want to give it a little bit of a twist. I can taper it down, and that's what I'd want to do, maybe taper it down, just like a cup would be tapered down, just like that. And then I can bend it and do some more things, right? But you notice it has a major flaw if I'm making a cup, right? Apparently I don't understand how cups work, even though I'm drinking out of one right here. I think that's fine for a cup. No. So let's fix that. What do you have to do? Do you have to jump in? Do you have to play with the mesh? Do you have to manipulate this 3D stuff? No, because check this out. Right over here, just select your 3D layer, and then right over here, edit source. So I'm going to hit the edit source. Oh, thank you. We're back in our fun, nice 2D environment, and I can come in and sort of seal this up. Right there. Let's seal this up. Something like that. And the thing is, I don't have to get it perfect because I can always change it later. So let's just go ahead and move this down. It might not be 100% perfect. Let's save that and just close that. And now, that's magical. All right, good times. Edit source. I didn't merge this down. Sorry about that. I missed one. So merge shapes. So they do have to be all on that one layer. But there it is. All right. So there it is. I've sealed that up. We can always select current view and sort of rotate it around and see it a little better. Right. But in essence, I've sealed that up. Okay. You might be wondering, look at this, guys. Look, it's a different color right there. Because what it did is it's just like I said, you could take a bitmap and you can extrude it and it'll make it into a box, but it's going to keep that bitmap, that picture on top of it, and that's what it did. It kept the picture of that Creative Cloud logo, even though it was a solid white. It said, hey, you're a picture. We don't want to mess with your pixels. We're going to keep that image data. Okay, so that's what that is. That's image data right there, and that's what this material is right here. I'll hit edit texture. I don't mean to get too confusing, but that's the texture. Let me just change all of this right here. I'm not going to get too into, say, the texture of it because it's all going to be determined by the 3D printer, right? So this could be purple. I don't care because at the end of the day, I'm going to say, hey, print this out as a ceramic. Okay, so the color really doesn't matter, but I had to at least make it one solid color, so we're all feeling good about it. I also, again, don't understand how cups work because it doesn't have a bottom, right? We could fix that, guys. Can you just overlook that fact as I tilt that back up right now? We can work on that later, because what does that mean? It means that I'd have to make a bottom, so I'd have to make a filled-in Creative Cloud logo, right, solid, and I would just extrude that a little bit and then attach that to the top. That's what I would do. Okay, but let me just finish this out, guys, because I don't have a ton of time, so I'm just trying to ease you guys into this. Top edge, for instance, I might want to smooth that out. I don't want to cut my lip, right? I could contour it, and that's not a safe cup at all. Let's smooth that top edge like that, and I've smoothed that top edge. You can see it right there, and it looks good. Okay, so there's my cup. It's just a simple extrusion. I've done a little bit of manipulation. I actually really like how it's curved like that. And now I can print this out. So I go to 3D print settings. Selecting that, and look, my properties panel has changed. Okay, and I could have just selected this button, but nonetheless, if you are down the hall connected to a MakerBot, Just like they're connected to your inkjet printer, you can go ahead and select your MakerBot printer or whatever printer you have, right? You can select it, and it's going to do sort of all this magic you want it to do, and then you click right here, and it will print it out. Let's go ahead and let's do that right now, actually. Okay, so right now, hey, it's starting to get into size, guys. It says, hey, whoa, this printer you selected, the print bed is only this big, and your cup is like the size of a bathtub, right? I wasn't planning on making a bathtub, but again, let's just scale to print volume just for fun. But if I wanted to change that, I can jump in here. I can do it a couple different ways. I can like select my actual object, and that's why I'm taking a look at these coordinates on the actual, look at that, right down there, 7 inches by 5 inches, and I can just grab it and like scale it down if I want to and move it to the ground, or just take a look at these and change these coordinates right in here. So I can manipulate it and make it smaller. In essence, I'm just going to jump back in there. I can see the print volume. So you can see how big it is. That's pretty big. So it was larger than that. So this MakerBot Replicator 2X is not that big. But all in all, I'm just going to hit this print button, and it's going to add the scaffolding and this raft and all this fun stuff. Let me do something a little bit more extreme. I'm going to kind of screw this up just to show you guys what happens. So let me just twist this some more like that. And let's jump in and print it. Scale the print volume, hit print. It does all that magic I talked about earlier, repairs any meshes. You know, if something is tight but not touching, it will seal up that hole, if you will. It's going to thicken the walls. If it's multiple meshes, just like I said, if I would have made another 3D like bottom, it would have sealed that as one solid piece, but that's what it's doing right now. Just like, again, I don't know what my inkjet printer is doing really when I hit print, but something's going on. That's basically what's going on here. It's like, hey, yeah, whatever, just print it. But you'll see, I'm going to show you kind of the issues you run into, or actually not the issues. I'm going to show you what Photoshop does to repair any issues when it comes to 3D printing. This generating scaffolding. So we know how that 3D printer works, right? It does it by layers, right? And what happens if it comes to, if I was standing like this, I wanted to 3D print me and my hand's out here, it can't start printing my hand in midair. So it builds scaffolding, right? This little tower up to my hand, and then it'll start printing the hand. And that's what you're going to see, and that's why I twisted this. I'm trying to get it to generate some scaffolding, so you'll see what Photoshop adds to make sure it's a successful print. Okay? And then, oh yeah, that's some scaffolding. Look at that. All that orange, look at that. Hello. Look at all that. So you can see the original mesh is green. Anywhere where the walls are thickened, holes closed, it does all that correction. But look at this orange is the scaffolding, guys. That's my original, and that's the scaffolding. So what I'd actually have to do for this thing that's kind of complex, I'd have to jump in there. Once it's done printing, I have to break off all of that orange and clean it up with a little Dremel, possibly. Okay. Again, I'm using a MakerBot up the way. Normally, as a 3D designer, I'd have to build in a lot of that to get it to print out. And it also does this raft at the bottom. It wants to make sure that everything gets printed out in starts at the same spot, and that's what that is down there. That's what Photoshop does. It prepares it and makes sure it's going to print out just fine. In this case, kind of a mess. But all in all, I can also export it out. Let me just fix this because I actually want to do one more thing with this, guys. Let's correct that twist, which was a little much. There's my cup. And maybe I lost you guys when you said, "Oh yeah, just print to your local printer." Who does have a 3D printer in the room? You? Yeah, okay. We do have a couple people that do have printers, so that's awesome. So you can connect to those. Chances are you might not have one. In which case, what do? You can actually send it to Shapeways or Sculpteo. Sculpteo is a company in Europe. I think it's Amsterdam or somewhere Benelux somewhere. But all in all, that's where they are. And there's also Shapeways. In fact, if I select Sculpteo, as I select them, hey, they're a whole print service provider. So check this out. Look at all these different materials I can print to. Ceramic, plastic, different types of resin, and silver. Right? So these are all the different, and again, there's multicolor. Same thing with Shapeways. If I select Shapeways, I get access to all these different materials. You can have a gold-plated cup if you want. You could be that guy, drinking out of a gold cup in the morning. Bronze, the different colors of ceramics, the different plastics. So that's what you'll see up here, like, I don't know if I think it's just a regular plastic. But here's a white plastic, which is essentially what this is, right? So you have this, which is white, and then you go down, just like I talked about full color sandstone, that's right there. So in one case you have your plastic here, right? This little guy here, and then you have your full color sandstone right here. So you guys can come up here and look at them and check them out and all that fun stuff. When I'm done. Even in the case of this coral red, strong and flexible, that's what this iPhone case is as well, right? And I can show you guys how to make that. But in general, what else do we have? Castable wax, that's awesome, right? So if you actually wanted to make a mold. 14 karat gold, if you want to be that guy, you can select it. I kind of feel like selecting it. Let's do it. Scale to print volume. I maybe shouldn't have hit that because it's about the size of the printer. So this is going to be a big cup. But all I'm doing is just showing you the different materials, all that stuff that's available to you, and what you're going to get if you select Shapeways. Because essentially what it's going to say is it's going to give you, again, the size, let you preview it, and it'll give you a quote for the price. Like, how much is this going to cost? Any takers? How much you get? 14 karat gold cup, as large as the print bed. 14 karat. Well, how much do you guys think this is going to be? I hope this hurries up, too, by the way. $2,000? 50 grand? Anyone else think it's going to be higher than 50 grand? I don't know. All right. I'm tempted to cancel out of this, but what I'm going to show you is you're not going to see that scaffolding, right? Because what does Shapeways and Sculpteo use? They use those big industrial printers where everything is a powder. So it doesn't need those supports, because if you're, again, printing me in my hand, it doesn't have to build up that support because it's all in powder. The powder supports it. So there's nothing to break. There's no cleanup that needs to happen. That's why this guy, technically, like, these characters are really crisp. Because, again, it's done with lasers and powder, and then they just excavate it, take away the powder, and that's what you get. Right? Technically, what they do, even with the colored ones, all they do is they dye this. Everything starts out white, and then they just dye it the color that you want it. Okay, so that's how that's done. But that's how it gets to be so crisp. So you're not going to see any scaffolding for this, but you will get the price. I heard 50 grand. Oh, 60 grand. You were awfully close. Who was that? Who said that? I don't know. I'm going to try to toss this to you, and I'm probably going to hit somebody in the head. It's a rubber. Oh, there we are. Thanks. That was, for having a hangover, it was pretty good. All right. So there it is. It does the repairs. It tells me it's 60 grand. So if you want to be that guy drinking the gold out of the gold cup in the morning, there's the STL file that it creates. We can kick that out. It says, hey, we don't want to get involved in your business with Shapeways, so just go ahead and upload it to the site. So I'll click that button, and it's going to take me to the site that will then allow me to upload that STL file. Okay? And again, it might depend on the... There we go. Cool. So I can click upload. I select that file. And you guys know how that goes, right? Select your file. In fact, I'll just click over here to models. And, yeah, you'll see, again, that model right in here somewhere. Here's the cup. And I could, again, if I don't want it to be a 14 karat gold, oh look, there's even a rose gold. Oh, how interesting. I know I want one of those. But in all seriousness, what I would do is I'd select the ceramic, wherever that is. But it's a matter of selecting that material and then going with it. And, well, anyways. So you select it, and then you can print it out that way. So that's how that's done. I was doing premium silver. It's not that much better, but again, it's $8,000. Okay? Still a lot of money. Okay, does that seem pretty easy, guys? You guys have a good vision for how this is done? And you can do this with anything. Like, jump in here, guys. Just jump in here. Whether it's this or something else. Again, just to kind of start from scratch. Take that. And all I'm doing is I've just been doing simple, like, extrusions that you can do. Done. Take your girlfriend's name, your boyfriend's name, right? Do that extrusion. And you can always jump in and change it anytime you want. Like if you guys break up, you can hit edit source and then change it to whatever, right? Like, okay. And then there it is. We've changed it. And again, you can go through in that same process. I used to have this example, but again, extruding it, and maybe I want to bend it. So I can bend it this way, and all of a sudden I'm making a ring, right? So that's what I'm doing at that point, just real fast. So you're making a ring with, whatever your boyfriend or girlfriend's initials, right? And from there, again, just hit print, send it to Shapeways, 14 karat gold, because she's worth it, right? And that's what you do. But it's super easy to do, and it just varies on cost. Where does that cost come from? It comes from the amount of material that you use, right? Because this, even if it's a heart, for instance, or something else, it is going to trap that powder inside. Okay, so here it is, extruding this. The powder is going to be inside too. So technically it's like the amount of material that's being used here is going to determine the price. The size and the amount of material. Okay? And jump in and start working with this. Let's go beyond this actually. And I should be doing pretty good on time. I'll come back to that, but let's take a look at something else. Okay? Because chances are maybe you're not just extruding things. And that's all I've done. I can use basic shapes and create objects. This guy is like mostly, what is this? These are just like cones right here for these little candy corn, his candy corn hair. And this is just a sphere that's manipulated, right? Everything here is pretty much a basic shape, right? And so you can do a lot with basic shapes and just extrusions. But there are cases, and again, that's what I do right in here is, maybe I'd take this and I'd extrude this. But chances are, you might not even need to create anything from scratch. And like I said before, Photoshop doesn't take pictures. You just clean up stuff in Photoshop. Same thing for the 3D modeling. You might not do your 3D modeling. Photoshop is not your 3D modeling tool, guys, just so you know. But it allows you to clean things up. So let me just fix this extrusion. There it is, right? So I've made that flat because I'm thinking, okay, I want to do this logo or this design and turn it into an iPhone case, right? It's like, well, I don't want to have to make the bumper, right, the frame that has to be out there somewhere. In fact, you can, from Photoshop 3D, you can go to get more content. And that's just going to take you to a site. It's going to be a bunch of resources, right? So right in here, in fact, you can just go to any one of these. Thingiverse is probably one of the more popular ones, right? So in Thingiverse, you can find iPhone cases or whatever out there. So I'm just selecting one, but this is a resource. It's an open source community pretty much that gives you access to a lot of these files. So this is what I do, is I just go snag this off of Thingiverse and then add this, like customize it myself, right? So here it is. It's going to allow me to download it, right? So I download it, and then I jump into Photoshop, and I'd create a new 3D layer from that file. So at that point, that's when I'd locate that particular file. Might be one of these. You know, there's an STL, which we kicked out an STL earlier, right? But again, just grabbing that, pulling it in. There's the iPhone case. But they're not part of the same like universe, right? They're like in different worlds, okay? And what you can do is just select those two, and then I'm going to merge those two layers. And hey, let's merge these two and make them part of one world. And now they're part of that one world, and you can manipulate that further, okay? I won't worry too much about doing this, but again, I'd sort of resize this guy, either one of them, and you know, position it accordingly. And what you end up with is something like this. And again, I'm just clicking over to the final, but that's what I've done here. So you can see that it actually is two different pieces. Here's my extruded design, and then here's my frame that I've imported. So even if you are doing 3D and you're working in Cinema 4D or Strata Studio Pro, I don't know where that came from. That app is like 15 years old. Does anybody remember Strata Studio Pro? Probably not. Okay, never mind. But I can model it in a 3D program, bring that model in. Photoshop's going to do all the repairing that it needs to. And I can take it a step further because I can start to even paint on this stuff, right? So I can bring in a model. This guy could be modeled in you know, Cinema 4D. And I can bring him into Photoshop, and I can do all the painting directly on this particular object. And I'll show you guys how to do that if I have time, which I'm not sure how much time I have, but 5 minutes. Cool. Okay, so all in all, guys, that's all I've done. Is that I'm bringing in content. Just to make sure we're clear, Photoshop isn't really your go-to for 3D tools. It's your gateway drug for 3D. That's what Photoshop is. Get you involved, check it out, you know, and then you can, as you want to do more, that's when you're going to want to get a hold of like Cinema 4D or something like that. And just like I said I wanted to paint. As far as painting, whether this is something I've imported or whatever, I can jump in here and I can select a brush. And let's select red. But just to show you, you can like paint. I can actually use these controls down here to rotate it. But at this point, I'm not sure how big this brush is. But I'm like painting on the side of this right now, right? And what it's doing is it's actually applying that to this 3D, this extrusion material. So I'm painting on it. I'll rotate it around. Here's the front. Oh, and I'll tell you why that happens. But in general, I can go ahead and paint on any. This is already a bitmap, is what's happening. But in general, I can paint on this object, is what I'm doing. If I go to this extrusion material, you'll see there's the hearts that I've made. Let's actually move this to the side. Okay, so that's what I've painted. So here, as I start painting, you can see it appear. See how it's changing on my object? Is what I'm doing. All right. So this will get printed out. I could print this at full, as full color sandstone if I want to. I can change the front. Let's take this a step further. What if I wanted to do this? Let's save that. Just another idea for you guys to be able to jump in here with my object. Let's rotate it 90 degrees, stand it up, taper it down, all that fun stuff, right? Because in this case, what I want to do is, I thought, okay, well, what if I wanted to make this a vase, for instance? Or I wanted to, like, chop off the top, okay, to make this hollow. Well, I can do that. I can take that front inflation material, and rather than changing the color or painting on that bitmap, check this out. I can go down here, opacity. Let's just drop that opacity down, and now I've chopped off the top, right? That's what I've done. I could, even if I wanted to be more specific, right? I can create a new texture there. And if I edit this texture and I start painting in black, whatever's black is going to be the mask. Whatever's black is going to punch a hole in it. So right in here, if I wanted to have maybe two holes for 2 flowers as part of this vase, I can do that. Saving that, let's bring it back. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, it basically did that. It's a little funky. It's a little off in size, but that's what I've done, is I've just applied that transparency, that texture to that top part. Okay, I'd have to resize it a little bit, but I did want to show you guys that because again, you can go ahead and make objects hollow, especially if it is going to be a big heart piece. Maybe you want to make it hollow, and trust me, that's going to cut your costs like down for a quarter of the cost, right? Depending on how big it is, right? But again, there's my vase. I can go ahead and take it and have it printed. Of course, this wouldn't be a vase because this was full color sandstone, right? So like sand and water don't mix. It wouldn't hold water very long, guys. So don't do that specifically. But again, I can take this and have it printed. So cool. I can go on and on. I probably have like 3 minutes. We've seen a lot of this stuff. Oh, I'm just getting back to the cup. You can see that right here. You can see it printed out right there. That's the plastic version, but here's the ceramic version of that cup as well, right? Ceramic, and then you have like metals as I drop that, right? I meant to do that. Thank you. All right. But that's how it works, guys. Pretty straightforward. I'm wrapping up here. Oh, I wanted to show you a personal project. Hey, why not? And again, this is just kind of vision cast for you. I'm working on this children's book, and that's where these characters come from. I said, okay, I can draw these characters, and that's what I did actually on the iPad using Sketch, right? And I've created these characters. That's kind of where he started from, also with inspiration from my nieces. And then I ended up sort of making this children's book. And this is an earlier version, but again, I have sort of here we go, click to this, taking these characters and printing them out in full color sugar. So just like it's like more and more materials are made every day for 3D printers. And here you have characters that can be printed in full color sugar. These are just the sandstone versions, so please don't lick it. But again, that's the idea. Sort of something that wasn't available to me today. And the next thing you know, it's like, okay, well, this is complementary content to, this design project that I was working on. So again, that's kind of cool. And I think that's all I have for you guys. See, that's a white slide. So I'm done. I don't know if you guys have any questions. Otherwise, I'll let you go. Yeah, we'll take a couple questions real fast, and I'll let you guys go. Go ahead. Yeah. 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 Yeah, so the question is, is it 100% seamless? Probably not, just to be honest with you. But yeah, so the question was about going from a 3D program into Photoshop and then back to the 3D program. And you could take anything and export that 3D layer. You're probably wondering what you can export, but these are the different types that you can go ahead and suck into Cinema 4D. I have not had to do that, so I don't know what translation issues. I don't know. It should be fine. But, welcome to 3D where you have things happen. I don't know. But yes, you can go back and forth. Yeah. So you had a question? Yes, that's a great question. What's about like the pre-flighting, checking your file to make sure it's actually going to be printed successfully, which is, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because if I would have went through that process, uploading that model, they do a check there, because they'll check it for each material. Oh, it can be printed in all these different things. That's the automatic process. In fact, they even have the ability to repair online. Shapeways does. So it'll go through and it'll close any holes and it'll say, hey, is this okay? You're like, yes, yes, yes. And then they actually physically, somebody at Shapeways in Brooklyn checks the file to make sure it's going to print out successfully. And it's up to you if you want to determine, even if it's not 100% correct, you can say print anyway, right? And it might not come out perfect, but those multiple checks happen so you don't end up with, a bunch of junk in the mail. But I do have an island of misfit toys, don't get me wrong. I screwed up lots of things. All right, if you guys have any more questions, come on up here, or if you guys want to check out this stuff. And, yeah, thank you so much. We'll see you guys later today.